So welcome everyone to this proposal writing workshop. And if you'd like to, please go ahead and in the chat, put where you're calling in from. And then also the name of the organization or business or entity that you're associated with. We can all start to see who's here. And we'll get started in just a few minutes. We have about 35 people registered today. Maybe not everybody will be able to join in person or live, but we'll go ahead and wait just a couple minutes for folks to arrive. Okay, so good morning or good afternoon now. And for folks just joining, if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat, where you're calling in from and who you're connected with, what organization or business or entity, that would be great. And I do want to mention we are recording this call so that we'll have a recording out of folks who can't make it live and for you to watch later. If there are any concerns about recording, you're welcome to turn your camera off. And that's fine. So we will set aside time for questions and answers at the end of the call. So we've got a section of our time together for that. If something's not clear or you're uncertain about something and want to put it in the chat, you can go ahead and do that, or you can just write it and save it for after the presentations are complete. And either way, and I'll be monitoring the chat during this time. Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. A few more people might be joining, but I think we can go ahead and get started. And so we'll start with Carrie. Carrie Renee has been writing grants for 16 years, as well as supporting water and forest related projects and programs through fundraising, strategy development, outreach, and project management. And she's one of the core team of this project, and super happy to have her here. So go ahead, Carrie.
Thanks, Kathleen, and thanks everybody for being here. I am part of the Forest Business Alliance team, which is a group that came together under a CAL FIRE grant under their Business and Workforce Development Program, which is part of what we'll be talking about today, as well as some funding from Yuba Water Agency. And it's allowed us as a team of consultants to come together to provide technical assistance, workshops like the one you're attending now, and a peer learning network, which hasn't yet gotten started, but that we're working on establishing and initiating in the next coming months. And all of this is to increase local and regional capacity for forest sector businesses and organizations. And this slide is really just to show you a little bit about how we are doing this work. We're providing the technical assistance mostly related to grants, but also to business plan development. We've provided a sawmill workshop, and there's going to be a forest management workshop coming up on August 1st. And don't have to memorize any information on this slide. It's just really to provide you with an overview. But if you'd like more information about Forest Business Alliance generally, the website is forestbusinessalliance.org. And Kathleen, if you could put that in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah,
there's information on that site about the project itself, how to get technical assistance, and also a way to register for the workshops that are coming up. As well as to get templates for the grant program I'm about to talk about, and there will be others added to that webpage in the future as well. And if anyone on this workshop is interested in participating in, hearing about, or just even getting some information about the peer learning networks that we'll be starting, go ahead and let us know that, or you can reach out at any time through the contact information on the Forest Business Alliance website. As I said, that's just getting started, and we are interested in hearing from you if you want to participate. So today we will go over, I'll go over some information about CAL FIRE's Business and Workforce Development Grant Program. And then we'll talk about, just really briefly, highlighting some other forest sector related grant programs, ways to find them. And then Chris will take over to talk about preparing a competitive proposal for the Business and Workforce Development Program, and then generally talk about the keys to successful proposals in general. And we'll have a Q&A session. We'll ask you to hold your verbal questions until the end, but if you want to pop questions into the chat at any time, Kathleen will help track those, and that's great. So feel free to put them in at any time they come to you. And then we'll close out with a little bit of information about how to request technical assistance from this team.
Carrie, should I go ahead and do one of the poll questions right now?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Kathleen.
Yeah, reminding myself as well. So we have a couple poll questions just to get a sense of who's here. And we want to just go ahead and launch this first one. And you should see the screen pop up. And just says, what type of entity do you own, work with, or represent? So if you could just click on that: business owner, employee, tribal entity, nonprofit, government, or local agency. It should be able to just click that. And we can start to get a sense of who's here. I'll leave it up just for about 10 more seconds, and we can close that after. And I think you have to submit there's a submit button at the bottom too to click that and have it go through. So it looks like, okay, so about 9 people. So there we go. So business owner, let me just share the results of that. So 1/3 of the people here are business owners, a little under half are nonprofit, and then a couple others. So there we go. And then we have one more question to ask right now briefly. And this is, have you ever prepared a grant application before? And if so, for what kind of funding source? So if you want to go ahead and click on that, and again, press the submit button, we'll get a sense of the experience that folks have doing this. So again, I'll leave this on for just about 15 more seconds so that folks have the chance to answer and submit. And state, federal, foundation, or other. Okay, so let me just share the results of that. So most people have some foundation, federal, and state experience, so that's great. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and then Carrie, if you want to continue.
Thanks, Kathleen. I'm glad you remembered that, and this is interesting to hear about. It's helpful to know what folks have applied for in the past. So for this CAL FIRE Business and Workforce Development Grant Program, that is the grant that has funded the Forest Business Alliance. And the initial intent was for this team to provide capacity building assistance to applicants interested in applying for the Business and Workforce Development Program itself. This program is through a state agency, which is CAL FIRE, and the program is seeking to maintain and enhance the forest sector workforce and businesses of California. And you'll find that most of the grant questions and also the grant goals that you need to identify and work toward are really geared to promote healthy, resilient forests. And the goal of the program is achieved by supporting business development and workforce development projects through grants. Okay, there we go. Wouldn't advance for a moment there. So there are 3 grant types, and some of the application materials are different depending on what you're applying for. There are business development grants, workforce development grants, and then research and development grants. And business development grants are geared toward facilities, operations, professional services that really are supporting individual businesses, while the workforce development portion of the program is aimed at universities, community organizations, or businesses that are increasing workforce capacity in the fields of logging, fuels treatment, transportation, manufacturing, or other support services. And the difference really is between individual business support and then in workforce development, it's more geared toward training or increasing the capacity of the workforce, forest sector workforce itself. And for research and development, these are grants that CAL FIRE will consider. It has to be related to business and workforce development in some way. These projects will be considered, but they're not highlighted as the main priority for this funding program. So for eligible projects, really, there's a pretty long list of eligible and preferred project categories. It's really important to look at the guidelines and get familiar with this list of projects. The preferred project categories may shift over time, depending on what the most recent rounds of funding have supported. So for example, right now, CAL FIRE's preferred project categories for the upcoming solicitation, which is in September, is transportation of forest biomass, establishment or expansion of infrastructure in regions where there's lacking capacity, so Southern California, Central Coast, and Southern and East Side Sierras. In woods fuels reduction operations and workforce training, wood processing facilities, and then connecting forest industry businesses with each other and with workers. And again, there's a lot more information in the guidelines. And if you have questions about your specific project, about whether or not it's preferred or just whether or not you're eligible, we really do recommend you reach out either to the Forest Business Alliance team and or CAL FIRE staff. We're all available to help. And within the project types, there are also specific eligible activities. So you can request funding for planning, for organization and business capacity building, and workforce and infrastructure development. The CAL FIRE grant program is really designed to be relatively open and flexible with their funding. So they'll fund anything from creation of a business plan if you want to start a new business and you need funding to get things started, all the way to establishing a biomass facility or providing funding for transportation of biomass out of the woods. It's a pretty broad set of activities that they will fund. So prescribed fire, purchasing equipment and then using that equipment to conduct thinning activities, subsidizing transportation, marketing forest products, permitting new businesses, providing training. There are a lot of different types of activities that they will fund. It's important to look at both your overall project for what is eligible, and then also to make sure that you're looking at the list of eligible costs, which are included in the grant guidelines in a more detailed area of the budget development portion of the guidelines. And Chris can mention that a bit more, but that's really more focused on preparing your grant application itself. It's just an important reminder to be sure you're looking at all elements of the guidelines when you think about whether or not your project is eligible. So this program has 2 solicitations per year in the spring and in the fall, and the grant guidelines are often updated in between these 2 solicitations. So it's important to be sure that you're not only tracking the deadlines, but also looking at the guidelines in between, because things do change. And this table I'm not going to go into it in depth right now. I want to leave time for Chris to go through some grant specific information, but this is in the guidelines, and this is information that we can also talk with you about in depth related to your specific project if you're interested in technical assistance and you want more information about these details. Additionally, we do have some templates that are available for specific proposal elements, and I will provide those, or one of us will provide those after the workshop. It's possible that some of these templates will be updated in the next couple of weeks as CAL FIRE releases the new solicitation materials for the September deadline for this business and workforce development grant. And there are also a lot of resources available on CAL FIRE's grant website, including a 30-minute an offering of 30-minute consultations from CAL FIRE staff about your specific project, as well as a grant program webinar that goes over some of this information I've gone over, but a lot more detail. They take a full hour for this specific grant program. And I'll put that link in the chat and share it after the workshop as well. And lastly, I just want to highlight that in addition to the Business and Workforce Development Grant Program, there are a lot of other forest sector focused grant programs. The California State Grants Portal is one source for searching for additional grants. And there are also some individual funding agencies that provide newsletters that list grant opportunities, including the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. And CAL FIRE also provides updates that you can sign up for. And the California State Grants Portal also provides updates automatically via email if you sign up. I also have a list of grant programs specific to forest sector and renewable energies that I'll share after the workshop. And you're also welcome to reach out to us if you have questions about other types of grant programs in addition to the business and workforce development grant that we're talking about today. So before moving on to Chris's portion of the presentation, Kathleen will do another survey question or two, and I will pop the link to the CAL FIRE site into the chat.
Great. Thanks so much, Carrie. So we have just two more quick survey questions for you. So this one is about your level of grant writing experience. So starting with never completed a grant proposal, you could call that 0, to have considered it, all the way up to you could really be leading this workshop. So go ahead and please click on whichever applies best to you. Click the submit button so we can just get a sense before Chris starts. And I'll leave this up for just about 30 seconds. And I want to just go ahead and introduce Chris. So Chris Sacco is with, I hope I'm saying this right, Chris, Aegis Conservation, Ecology, and Regenerative Development. And he has more than 20 years experience in natural resource management and has raised funds for and led dozens of international projects for community-led development and peer learning networks. So really happy to have Chris here. Thank you. And it looks like the majority of people have submitted 1 or 2 grant applications and a couple not or considering. So thank you for that. And I'll just share the results of that so everyone can see that briefly. And then we just have one more poll question before we turn over to Chris. And if you have time to put this in, and I'm also thinking if the poll ends and you don't get a chance to fully submit, please put your answer to this in the chat, and that would be another way. So we're trying to get a sense of what type of grant proposal people might be seeking. Is it the business development or workforce development? So if you could put either of those in and then estimated amount needed, that would be great. So we'll leave this one open for about 30 more seconds as well. And then when we get some answers in, I see one person has already submitted, we can share this results. And again, if it closes, if we need to close this, we'll give about a little bit longer. You can put this information in the chat as well, but it'd be nice to just kind of see especially the first one, if everybody's doing one or another. So we have 2 answers in so far. For just about 15, 20 more seconds, and I'll end it, and then we can continue that in the chat. Okay, so if you haven't submitted, go ahead and hit the button. I'm going to end this poll, and then let's just share the results. And then if you didn't get a chance, go ahead and please put that in. Oh, it's funny. It's not showing up with the details, Carrie. That's interesting. So, yeah. So if you could put that, I don't know why this poll, I guess we needed to do it in a either or a multiple choice option. So if you could put that in the chat, that would be great. Sorry to make folks do that twice. But if you could put that, which category of grant proposal that you're planning to submit or considering submitting, and then the estimated amount.
It does show for me. I can put this into the chat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it won't show up for you, Kathleen, but I will put it in.
And in the meantime, as Carrie's doing that, Chris, if you want to go ahead and start. And thanks, Ken. So some folks are already putting that into the chat. That's great.
Yeah, this is really great to see. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat too. It's to see what you're looking for.
And I can read it out loud for the recording purposes. So at least one person, business development, about 75,000. With the chat or with the poll, sorry. Oh, did you launch that again, Carrie?
I didn't, but I may have.
Oh, that's weird. It came up again.
Sorry.
Okay. With the poll, workforce development for 3 of the people between 500 and $1 million, or 1 to 5 million, and estimated another 5 million. And then the one business development 75. And then Lenora's saying a workforce development grant about 5 million. So that gives a sense of that for you, Chris. And thank you everyone for putting that information in and sharing that.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Yeah.
You could advance the slide one, please, Carrie. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. That was really helpful. The poll was really helpful to get a sense of what everyone's looking for. That'll help me guide this conversation as we move forward. So preparing a competitive proposal for CAL FIRE, I'm starting with this slide because it gives you the scoring matrix that the agency uses. I put only on here the business development and workforce development applications, which are, as Carrie mentioned previously, the 2 that were given preference in the last round over the research applications. We're not going to go into a ton of detail on this, but it's going to be relevant to what I'm going to talk about in a moment to see, where the majority of the points are awarded. And in the application guidelines, again, this may change, but this is based on the last round of applications that CAL FIRE solicited. So the point totals may change, but it will be something similar to this. And again, you'll see here that the budget and project impact sections, which we're going to talk about more, that's 50% of all the points you can earn are from those 2 sections. And if you're a business, 20 points for a business plan, which is another hefty section. We won't go into a lot of detail, but just gives you a sense of where you're going to earn your most points. And for the workforce development application, folks, the project background, and then this the collaboration, readiness, and job creation sections, which are going to be in the scope of work document, which we're going to talk about, are weighted heavily. So again, goes into each one of these sections. They'll be in the guidelines that CAL FIRE provides during the next round. They will provide a lot of detail for what you need to prepare for each one of these categories. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. So winning proposals do many things well, but most importantly, in my view, they demonstrate good planning, they demonstrate project impact, and they communicate the grantee's expertise. We'll talk about each one of these in a little more detail. Again, there's a lot of things you need to do well, but if you could pick three, those are the priority things. Move on, talk about planning and objectives. If you could move on to the next slide, Carrie, that'd be great. So successful proposals include and effectively communicate a clear plan for how you will bring your idea to fruition. The proposal narrative that you're going to prepare and all the related documents need to tie your proposed project's goals to the grant maker's goals and show how your proposed activities will allow you to achieve your goals and objectives. For workforce and business development applications, you need to show good, consistent planning across the scope of work, work plan, budget, and goal forms. And for the business development applications, you need to do the same, but also you will need to consistently show good planning throughout the business plan that you're going to need to prepare. It's a little complicated the way that CAL FIRE does it. So we have developing rather a template that's going to help you do the planning and set your targets, and then communicate that. By doing that, you should be able to more effectively communicate it during the proposal development. And I'm going to share my screen for a second to show you one of the templates that we are preparing to help you do this. So you can see that, I presume. I'll zoom in a second to different sections. So this template, it's a project design and planning template. We have a report tracking worksheets as well, but for the purposes of this workshop, we're going to focus on the planning piece. So it allows you to, I'll zoom in here. It allows you to put in your goals, sub-goals, key activities, and then sub-activities. In this example that I've prepared, we are imagining our goal is to create new chip processing facilities within low-income, fire-prone rural areas of Northern California to advance forest resilience. So we've established our goal. The metrics, there's metrics that CAL FIRE has established for each one of the different potential areas that you could be applying for. Those metrics are available in drop-down menus. So you could, the metric for this goal that we've established would be additional biomass generation capacity. So we select it from our drop-down. You have to do that for the goal and then the sub-goal. This one, the relevant metric would be, again, selected from a drop-down menu. And it's, in this case, chip processing of bone dry tons. And then here, you could set your metric by year and fill out an easy Gantt chart, by quarter, and then insert some clarifying notes. I'm not trying to explain everything about this template. I'm just wanting you to know these are the kinds of things that we are developing for you to facilitate your journey to a successful proposal. So we'll have additional sessions we've been talking about where we could go into more detail on how to do planning and how to do budgeting and other specific tasks. But just know that this stuff's available for you, and then we'll be rolling it out. Some things are already available. For example, we have a very good budget template that we've developed that works similarly that's already available to help facilitate your work. And this one will be available shortly. Before I get off of this screen and turn it back over to the PowerPoint, I just want to mention that impact in this example, I'm going to talk about some of the potential impacts that you would want to show in a moment, but your targets will essentially be your impacts, right? So when we're doing our planning and setting our goals and identifying our key activities, we're also thinking in terms of impact, right? So in this example that I prepared, our impact is 54,000 additional bone dry tons of processed chips and $6 million worth of investment and 1,000 new jobs. Those are all impacts that would show up in this planning template and then be carried over into your proposal narrative. So again, I won't belabor this, and I'll just want you to know it's there. Go ahead, Carrie, if you would, with the presentation again. Go to the impact slide, yeah. So again, I showed you that on the template that we were just looking at, but grant makers want to be assured that their investment is generating tangible impacts. It's essential that throughout your documents, you clearly articulate there's a significant and measurable impact that lines up with CAL FIRE's overall goals and its stated metrics. I alluded to that when I was talking about in the previous slide in the template. There are very clear stated metrics that you need to use. You can't make up your own metrics. They've already established those for you. And so you'll need, whatever your goals are, you'll need to identify the metrics that CAL FIRE has established to measure them. So your impact will be reflected through those metrics. In both the business and workforce development applications, you'll need to complete a budget and goals form, which will include quantitative targets for your goals, again, using those metrics. Then in various other application documents, you can use those other, like the scope of work document, for example, would be a good place. And also in the business plan, you can use those to elaborate and provide context to whatever the metrics are that and the targets are that you're using. For business development applications, just the impact that you're proposing is worth 25 points. So it's 25% of the total of all the points you receive. Yeah, and here again, this is really, I think, a good illustration of powerful metrics and powerful impact. If you were to receive, let's say, a $2 million grant, which is in the range of, some of the people the project that you're thinking of, if you could show that you generated, $6 million worth of new capital, additional processing capacity, 1,000 new jobs, that would be make a really powerful case of CAL FIRE that it's money well spent. And to win, it's not enough to show that your budgeted costs are reasonable, right? You need to demonstrate that the project is a good value for the money. So a $2 million grant to generate these results would be a really good return for CAL FIRE. If you were asking for $15 million, which is actually beyond the scope of what they provide, but if you were asking for a lot more money, even you say 5 million, maybe it's not. That would be up to you to try to make that assessment. But your reviewers will certainly be inevitably thinking about your proposed impacts in relation to the amount of money that you're asking for. So you got to keep that in mind when you're setting out to develop your targets. Go on to the next one. And the last kind of key to success is demonstrating you have the relevant expertise and experience. Everyone knows that past experience and past success is not an indicator of future success necessarily, but it definitely gives the grant maker, in this case CAL FIRE, a sense of your team's capacity and that you're capable of achieving success if given the opportunity to do so. For both types of applications, you'll describe your expertise and experience in the statement of qualifications document. That's specifically provided, that annex to the main project proposal is where you'll have the opportunity to really set out your qualifications as a team or as an organization. There are also sections in the scope of work document where you'll be able to talk about your administrative capacity and other and show other types of expertise and capacity. And then in the business plan, of course, for business development application or applicants, that'll be a good spot for you also to talk about your expertise and experience. And then you shouldn't forget about the resumes that you will attach, the letters of participation and letters of support, all of which are required for both types of applications. Those are good opportunities to, again, show expertise and experience. So you want to make sure you might need to redo resumes or provide, if you're getting letters of support and letters of participation, you can provide models to people to make sure they're providing the information that is going to make your proposal successful. That's all I've got. I want to leave time for questions, Carrie. So
great, thanks so much, Chris. And on this, I just wanted to add that this list is really a nice reminder that the Forest Business Alliance team has created some templates, as Chris was mentioning, both for the budget and also the metrics that Chris showed. We also have Word version templates for the scope of work. And because the requirements for the scope of work are different depending on whether you are applying for business development or workforce development. And we'll have similar templates for other grant programs in the coming months. But for this business and workforce development grant program in particular, the scope of work template that we've created provides some additional instructions that link to CAL FIRE's guidelines, but also provide some ideas about what to include in specific sections. And we can send those templates out to folks. If you have questions about the statement of qualifications, which CAL FIRE limits to 1 page, which is not all that much space depending on how large your team is or the breadth of your experience, you can also reach out to us with questions about that. We have also provided a workshop about business plan development. There are recordings available for that workshop. And if you have specific questions about business plan development and would like to receive some technical assistance related to that piece, you should reach out to us. And for the letters of participation and letters of support, these not only really highlight our chance to highlight your relevant experience and expertise, but also will help you address the points that CAL FIRE awards around collaboration and community involvement, which is an important piece of the overall project picture you want to present. These things are required. And there are some differences between the two. So we hope to have some examples available, but certainly can answer questions about those pieces as well, if you have any. And I'll go ahead and put up our slide here with contact information. Chris's email, I realize, is not on this slide, but we will all be working together, so he'll receive information about any questions as well. And you can email any of us directly or just go to forestbusinessalliance.org. There's a general email address that's also included there, and that gets to all of us in the same way as using our direct email addresses. And the templates are available through the website, but they are password protected because they're being updated. And also we are hoping to really work with folks who are interested in the templates. So if you are not able to access the templates through the website, just reach out to us and we'll make sure that you get the information that you need and want.
Great. Thank you both. So we do have, plenty of time here for questions. So if folks want to either unmute and ask your question verbally, you can do that. You're welcome to also type your question in the chat if that's easier. And for either Chris or Carrie, and be happy to have. And even if there's a topic that you'd like one of them to go a little deeper in, or that something that they touched on, you're welcome to also kind of put that out. So we'll just open it up. Does anyone have questions to start?
One thing I'm realizing just as we wait a moment for folks to either come up with their questions or to think about them, something that we didn't cover, but that is an important thing to do for CAL FIRE grants in particular, is to register early for the eCivis grants portal. These grants need to be submitted online, and eCivis has some structural challenges on occasion. So it's really important to leave yourself plenty of time to get really familiar with the eCivis platform. Also to make sure that your profile is set up, and then to just get really familiar with where things are located on eCivis. Some things are intuitive and some things are not. And also, some of the information is available on eCivis now, and some of it will not become available until CAL FIRE has released all of the September solicitation materials. So if certain things aren't available, you should just be sure to go back and check in on those websites. But it's really an important thing to access early and get familiar with early on in the process of proposal preparation.
Yeah, and Carrie, I would just add that the templates that the budget template and then this planning and metrics template have really been designed to make it easy for you not only to generate information for the narrative pieces of your proposal, but also they respond to the requirements of eCivis. So they generate the information in a way that allows you to kind of plug it in more easily. So I think that's we've tried to do that, and we'll get better at it. But this first round anyway, that's our goal. And happy to work with folks individually to do that too. We talked about that already, right?
Yeah, in fact, if there are folks who have specific questions about just the scope of work in particular, or the budget in particular, and we have enough folks who want to talk about that, there is the potential for setting up a smaller group session that just dives more deeply into, say, identifying project goals and metrics, or developing budgets, because those pieces can be really important. So if you have a particular portion of the proposal that you'd like to learn more about, let us know that, and we'll respond to folks who are interested.
Thank you. So does anyone have...
Sorry, Kathleen, this is Regine Miller. I was just going to ask, on the website, on our website, when you go to access the templates, it's password protected. So I don't know, Carrie, if you've already shared that. I had to step out for a moment during part of the webinar. I don't know if you shared that already.
I did.
You did? Okay, perfect.
I wasn't sure. I just directed folks to get in touch with us directly to access those templates, and I'll be sending out some post-workshop communications with a list of grant programs and some other information, and I'll provide an update on the templates in the email that I send out as well. So keep an eye out for those messages. Thanks, Eugene.
So we do have some more time if anyone has a question, and if you don't have a specific question but have an area that you'd like them to dive a little deeper into, that's also fine. And if not, we can also give everyone a little extra time, free time. Carrie, did you have any additional slides in the back that you wanted to bring in?
You know, Kathleen, I think that directing folks to the CAL FIRE website and the guidelines was really where I
Right.
landed after thinking about this. But if folks are interested, one thing that I could share is the list of other grant programs. It may be really hard to see on this screen, but if folks would like it, I can put it up on the screen quickly if that seems like it would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll stop my share. Probably going to be quite tiny in terms of the size, but it will give you a sense of what else is here. And I can zoom in on some of it as well. So as you can see with this, it lists agency or foundations with funding program and then some general information with links. As you can see, just as I scroll down, there are quite a few. I'm not sharing this really to have you look at all of the details in this moment. It's way too much to read, but there are quite a few that are here, and I'll continue to update this over time along with the rest of the Forest Business Alliance team. So, you know, forest sector grants are becoming more and more a focus of state funding and federal funding. There are a couple of foundations on here as well. So I'll send this out, and then as things are updated or as we provide technical assistance individually, we can share some of this information as well.
Great. So just last chance if anyone has any questions, and if not, we can go ahead and conclude. We will be sending out a follow-up email to everyone, and we'll include the contact information if you weren't able to copy that from the last slide. Carrie, do you have any final closing comments before we conclude?
I would just ask folks, when you do see an email from me, hopefully not more than 2 emails will come to you, but if one of them for sure will include a post-workshop survey, and we'd be really grateful to get your feedback. It will be a very short survey. I promise we won't ask you for a lot of detail, but any kind of feedback or interaction that we get from you really helps us to make this program more effective and more useful to you. That's why we're here. So feel free to reach out to us with feedback, and would just ask if you do have time to complete the survey when we send it out. That would be great.
Yeah, thank you. And I would echo that for folks watching the recording as well. We would love to hear that whenever you have a chance to watch that recording. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.